superintendent and Kevin, I sat down with them one day and said, what are the concerns the board has? Some of these things have been brought out in public, as David has said, but people were having, it wasn't clear. And so I gave it to David on Friday so that he could look at what some of the concerns that these board members have. So I'm going to ask David if he wants to present them. Those on a committee, if as David is talking, you want to stop and for clarification or ask questions. Sure. David, the mayor is willing to do that. But I'll let Dave, the mayor, excuse me, I'm sorry, since I know you as David, mayor, I will refrain from calling you David, but the mayor is going to talk on these points.
I've been called worse.
And by the way,
I'm going to stand up just so that I work better, kind of moving around a little bit. I'll start with an opening statement, just to kind of explain some of the concerns that have been out there and how did we get to this point. And the fact is that the town, and when I say the town, I don't see the Board of Ed separate from the town. I mean, I see we're all part of the same group, we're part of the same government, and the fact is that the town has an extra building. I didn't create this extra building, and when we won the elections, we had to figure out what do we do with this extra building. And my thoughts are not original either. I mean, I get my solutions to this problem came from Mr. Coppola and reading those minutes, and from Mr. Lawson, and from Mr. Dahl's campaign, and from the other people that ran for the Board of Ed, and for my own campaign. And what we suggested was that we've got an antiquated building in the form of East Street that is illegal, frankly. I mean, it's morally wrong to require people who are on crutches or on wheelchairs to try to go to the administrative offices that cannot accommodate them. So it's legally, it violates the ADA. I mean, you're kind of skating along on borrowed time. OSHA is a big issue. I mean, we've got OSHA breathing down my neck because the police department doesn't have an elevator. And those are police officers that, in order to serve duty, they have to be fit to serve. And they're still giving us a hard time about putting an elevator in the police department. I can't imagine what you guys would say if OSHA, came knocking on your door at the East Street building. So we've got this dilemma of an extra building. We got one that was closed against our protestations, but it's closed. And we see it as an opportunity now. We've got a closed building, but the opportunity is to take this building that was much more modern. It's one floor. It's got incredible access, entrances, exits. It's handicap accessible. It's large. I mean, it's centrally located in the middle of town. It's a tremendous resource on Route 7. And when you compare that to, frankly, the liabilities associated with the East Street building, which is a great building, and I'll get to my efforts to preserve it as well. But from an administrative standpoint, from a governmental use standpoint, it's well beyond its shelf life, which is not to say that it doesn't have a shelf life as a private entity, which is what I'm working towards. But as far as a governmental entity, I mean, I'm sure this board has looked into how much would it cost to make it ADA compliant. I'm not just talking about putting an elevator in there, which it would require, but you're talking about bathrooms, you're talking about emergency exits. I mean, let's say somebody gets up there and there's a fire and the elevator stalls. I mean, what do you do with somebody in a wheelchair on the 3rd floor? With stairs, the only way to get down. It's a logistical nightmare. So if you've looked at that, I'm sure you've looked at how much it's going to cost to retrofit and fix it up. And if there's a plan to do that, I'd love to hear it. I haven't heard one, which is why I'm moving forward with the idea that seems to have been endorsed by most of the people on the board to transfer those administrative offices. I mean, the Board of Ed can meet anywhere. They're meeting here tonight. It's the education department, it's the administrative offices that really matter. And we've offered them the opportunity to move into Pettibone. I got a schematic here, that demonstrates that. Here's a schematic of Pettibone. This is a giant school. If anybody wants to kind of look at this, it's a great size. And what you got here is this back wing, which I talked with your superintendent and said, where would you like to go? And you get first crack at this. Obviously, what's your first pick? And the idea was this back wing in the rear of the school provided the best option to establish a true education department in town, an education department that meets the needs of the town, that actually provides access and accessibility for the town's citizens, but also the sense of security and sense of ownership that frankly seems to be lacking right now in your Board of Education building. I mean, I've seen offices with leaks coming down through it. You have to walk through somebody's office to go to the bathroom. So this is a great opportunity with large classrooms to have a dedicated space, have a dedicated administrative offices, potentially expand the adult education program that you've got, and offer some education during the day instead of waiting for the schools to get out. And that's the plan. It's kind of putting these two buildings together and seeing what's the best way to go forward, and that's what I've been working towards. I believe in it, not because it's a campaign promise, but because it's the best thing for the town. And in the meantime, what I'm doing is I put out requests for proposals so that with that East Street building, while it may not be an appropriate governmental building anymore, we put out proposals out there and let developers tell us what can you do with this building, keeping the facade, keeping the historical character, but actually generating some employment and some activity downtown on, frankly, which is a government building that takes up a lot of space and some really prime real estate. So to me, it's the best of both worlds. We get to maintain that character of the building. We get to promote economic development. We're giving the education department, Board of Ed, the opportunity to have a designated, up-to-date, modern space, and we get to sell a building and put it back on our tax rolls. So that's how we got here. I hope that addresses some of the initial questions that people have. And then, I could go through some of the questions. One of the questions was, what's the time frame? For me, it's sooner rather than later. I'm starting the process, and this is a process. You don't start the process with everything. I'm not, almighty. I can't snap my fingers and have every single thing in detail worked out. But what we're doing is we've got the process. So I'm dealing with every department head. I'm dealing with your superintendent and all our department heads and our public works and our facilities department to determine what's it going to cost to get everybody in there. And we're putting those numbers together. Frankly, from what I've seen so far, I don't have them all right now, but it's not outrageous. I mean, we're not talking about the old Amico building that was filled with 10 feet of water in the basement. We're not talking about, some kind of building that's falling apart. I mean, a year and a half ago, our children were in this school and teachers were teaching there and it was being used and it was productive. So what I'm trying to do is just restore it to that point. But in terms of a time frame, it depends. It depends on everybody. I'd love to see, some real progress made during the fall. But if it goes beyond that, then it goes into the spring. If it goes beyond that, into the summer. Maybe it goes into next year. But whatever it is, at least we're making progress, and I'm not sitting on my heels waiting for somebody to tell me that I can do this. What I'm doing is I'm moving forward to do it.
Mayor, one of the biggest concerns for us, that when you say cost, we did our budget and we didn't anticipate.
Of course not. And I wouldn't ask you to pay for something if I'm asking you to do. No, when I have a budget and we can figure out where that money could come from. Okay. If it's $150,000, I could look at that. I mean, listen, there's a number of options. We're looking to sell the East Street building. I mean, it's appraised at anywhere between $1 million and $2 million. If I have to loan the money to ourselves in order to pay for that $150,000 or $200,000, that's still a good investment. We're still coming out at the end of the day. So there are financial options that do not implicate your budget, and I wouldn't be looking to do that. So
I just brought that up because that was floating. We had no idea.
Yeah, it's floating. I mean, it would seem silly for me to say, I want to set you up in another building, but you have to figure out a way to pay for it. I mean, I don't know how I would be able to justify that. But no, I'm going to come up with a plan once I have a budget to finance it. Absolutely.
All right. And I think that's a major concern with us because
sure.
Our
budget,
we had to go twice to the voters for our budget.
I understand.
You want to do a follow-up?
Yeah, Mr. Barnes was part of that, so I find it interesting with the 1, 2, and 3. I'll remember that next budget season. Yes, ma'am.
It's good to see you because I find a couple of the things you said intriguing.
Sure.
One that's been endorsed by most of the people on the board. This is the first that I'm actually hearing of it, other than the scuttlebutt on Facebook.
My
So-
campaign? You didn't
No,
hear
no,
me
I,
during the campaign?
no, well, I read the signs that say Pettibone, but
That's all you saw? I had a whole write-up about what my plan was to move the administrative offices from East Street to Pettibone. I mean, Dave Lawson wrote this whole big thing, and in my debate, it was out there. It was the
board members are
central
supposed to write
tenet.
letters to the paper, but that's another story.
Okay.
But anyway, back to my point. So you talked about things being illegal, and I want to say
Sure.
that, first of all, I think that listing the building was illegal, because according
It's not
to
listed,
my
ma'am.
understanding,
I just want to be clear. The building's not listed. I got authorization to list it for a price, but it's not listed. Like I said, I put out an RFP so that I have developers come to us and say, here's what our proposal for the building could be and for the property what it could be. So it's not listed right now. I'm not looking for somebody to kind of sign on the dotted line and then it gets transferred. Absolutely not. And I'll be coming to you to transfer the building to town control. I mean, I'd always intended that. I'm kind of sorry that you guys wasted money on a legal opinion when, if you'd asked me, of course, anybody that had said, the first thing I would do is expect that the Board of Education to transfer control to the town the same way that it was done for Pettibone. So I intend to come to you and do that. You haven't met all summer, so I really haven't had the chance.
but apparently you have talked to some of the board members, and I find that intriguing, because as you stated, many of the board members stated that there would be no backroom conversations or no side room conversations, and that was one thing you really dinged the current board that was previously elected for, and yet it seems like that's been the very same thing.
Let me just
But
address
that's
that.
regardless.
Man, you
No,
don't get to
no.
make a comment like that and then cut me off. Stop.
I have the floor.
No, you
Yes,
don't.
I do, excuse me.
You don't get to make an assertion that I'm making backroom deals and backroom dealings
Well,
without me
apparently you just said
responding.
you talked to some
I'll
of the board
talk to
members and they all
anybody.
agree.
One second, I was
I'm going
like,
to time out.
No, Bob, let me address
Just a
this.
second, time out. Angie, make your question and then.
Well, he made the assertion, I'm just rebutting that. I
I
find that
speak
very intriguing.
to everybody. Don't be intrigued by it. Be curious. Say, hey, if Dave Lawson or stuff, call me up and say, Mayor, what is the situation?
Well,
I talk to everybody, but I don't have to reach out to everybody.
Well, then don't say that you're being transparent, because up to this point, it's not been transparent.
Do you read the newspapers? I mean, this was in the newspapers in
It's not my
October,
responsibility.
in January.
I'm an elected official. If you have something you want to bring to the board, you need to bring it to the board. And this is the first time
I
that the board
haven't
in
brought it
any
to you
unit.
yet.
No, that's what I'm saying. This is the first time that the board in any kind of a unit
When was the last
has
time you
had
met?
this. We met in the spring, but we can call a special meeting.
You met in the spring. Okay, so here I am,
Actually,
and
you
I'm
were at a budget.
explaining.
You were at a budget meeting. You didn't mention this then.
I don't know where you're going with this, but anyway,
This
so
meeting
you want to
was-
be informed, you want to be kept,
excuse me,
no.
No,
I'm
just
trying
so
to-
that she knows what I did was, and then I'm responsible, and I'll take, Angie, you're right. I asked for a special meeting of this administratively during the summer, and because all the things were happening. And then I got an email from Josh to all of us saying you were willing to talk to us, and I immediately asked for him to come to this meeting, because this is the only meeting that I had that I could invite him, because I'm the chair.
I've always been willing to talk to anybody, at any time. But the fact is, I'm in the process of putting together a plan. Now, what do I gotta tell you about the plans for my plans? I mean, that's already out there. I've already said that my plan was to, the plan that I've adopted from the Board of Ed, the majority of its members, was to sell East Street, move to Pettibone. So now I'm in the process of developing that plan. And we're starting to put together details. I'm going to involve you in that. You're free to ask me any questions or call me up at any time.
That's what I'm going to do. Angie, do you have any other questions? You may just, that you want to ask, and then I'll ask any of the other board members. I see Bill has his hand up.
Well, I do have one more question. I'm very, we walked through the building before this meeting, and I can tell you, I'm clearly no construction expert, but it's going to take more than $150,000 or $200,000 to update that building. It's probably going to take more than the $2 million that you would sell.
What do you, where does that number come from?
Have you
How
been
could
in the
possibly
building?
do-
The
Many,
office
many
is
times.
completely flooded.
I'm sorry?
The office, you can see where there has been a flood in the office. There, outside the office,
There's
there's
never been a flood. That was there from before. It was a
there not a
leak.
flood
A
in
flood?
the office?
Yes. You know what a flood is? What's going on down in,
Oh, I'm not
the
sure.
south
I know
right now?
what a
That's
flood
a
is.
flood.
But I'm saying, my point is, it's
A
going to
leak.
take more than $150,000.
Well, you're telling me when I come to
I'm
you with a
not betting
budget
women, but I would bet you
in
that
the
it's gonna
realm,
be more than
when I come to you in the
$150,000 to
realm
take
of
that building.
$150,000, you may
So
want it to be
we're in
more than
agreement,
150. You may want it to be $2 million.
Angie, you're clearly
But
saying
I-
it's gonna be more,
Well,
and
prove you
I
wrong.
think, well,
Mayora's saying no.
if you can do that for $150,000, more power to you.
So,
Thank
do
you.
you have another issue? 'Cause you
I'm
have the
just curious
floor.
about where the money's gonna come from, because I'm here to tell you right now, it's gonna be more than $150,000. to
You're,
help take that
you're
building.
feeling that way,
I appreciate
David
your
is,
expert opinion. I'll keep that in
the mayor
mind.
is, but is there any other issue other than the cost that was put on the table?
I may have more to.
Do
someone
you
else
want me to
to
go to
go.
Bill and come back to you?
Absolutely.
Bill?
Can I make a comment? Then a
Will
question?
you?
Comments,
No,
please.
Depends.
Okay.
It's about the building?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
All right, one of the things that I felt strongly about with JPS, being in education for 40 years, the way education is moving now with schools closing in communities throughout the country are developing what they call community schools. They're taking their closed buildings and making it into a community schools that can be used during the day for tutoring, for, special, some kid needs special help. They're talking about during the day for adult education, for kids, people who are unemployed, getting skills. So this is a move that's not just unique for New Milford. And this is what I really truly believe. That building is accessible for that situation. Now, I had a hip replacement in February. I could not get into the East Street School to attend meetings because there was no physical way. The step, if anybody's gone to that ramp is not ADA. It's about this big, and it was very difficult to lift my leg. So that's something that concerns me. But I think we got to look at the total picture. That instead of getting into politics and cost, if that building is going to serve our community in the best way, whether it's the youth agency there, Park and Rec, if anybody's ever had kids take karate in the Park and Rec building, okay, it's ridiculous. You got a beautiful space there. That being said, my question, Mayor, is
Yes.
this. The previous administration, before the election, was asking for people to serve on a committee to see what to do with JPS. Now, I called up Mayor Murphy at that time and I said, I'd love to serve on it.
Yeah.
Never heard a thing. So my question is that a committee that's still there, or has that been?
No, not really. There is no committee.
So
I
if
always
you're-
found those committees to be kind of result-oriented anyway. You appointed people, to give you the result that you wanted. I'm not going to hide behind the committee on this. I welcome people's input. I'm working with department heads. I'll work with anybody from the Board of Ed that's interested in. If you appoint a subcommittee, I'd be happy to. But there is no. The committee is really, myself and the people that are working to kind of put the process together and determine, make it a reality.
So that never was carried over?
No,
to the
no,
previous
no, it wasn't.
administration? No. Which I think would have been helpful, because I think we would have been having this discussion along the lines instead of just at the end of last year.
Yeah, I'm learning, as I go along, so it probably might have been. But I also, we do have a short time frame to kind of get things done. We've got an empty building right now, and right now it's a liability. I tell the story about my first crisis when I took office was, the second day there, Public Works came to me and said, we have no plan to do anything with Pettibone over the winter and the temperature's dropping. There was no plan to heat it, there was no plan to do anything with it. So from day one, I've had to kind of react to the situation that we've got, a tremendous building, and frankly, the longer it stays empty, the longer it becomes a liability, the harder it is to rehab. So if it seems like I'm in a rush, it's because I don't like having wasted assets on the town books. Okay.
You all set, Bill?
I'm all done.
David? And I'm gonna go back to Angie, because she said she had. Did you want to ask, then Angie, you said you had something else. I wanted to let Bill have a chance first. I believe so.
So, are you going to bring in experts to look at Pettibone to get us a cost to renovate
Absolutely.
that?
Doing it right now.
Okay,
As
so
we
that'll
speak.
be, how will that be rolled out to the taxpayer and then the citizens?
When I have a budget, I'll present it, with the estimated cost and where the money's going to come from.
And who else will be in the building besides Board of Ed?
Right now, we've got 3 other departments, Parks and Rec, youth agency, obviously, and social services.
Okay, so there's some question as to whether the board would be stewards of that building, since the Board of Ed is in that, or if we would be renters of that building, tenants.
No renting, I mean, this youth agency rents the East Street building now. How does it work with
I
that?
think they pay some things, they pay for some upgrades and things, and we pay the utilities to do
Okay.
that.
I wouldn't consider you renters. We're not arm's length transactions. You know, you're part of the town. The same way Parks and Rec is, the same way youth agency is. I don't consider them renters either.
I don't think we were looking about renting is the space that we're in. I guess the question that we have as facilities, are we responsible just for that area and upkeep of that area because we need the budget for that, or do we have responsibilities to more of the building?
You wouldn't, let me put it, from what I can say right now, you wouldn't be responsible for anything outside of your area. I mean, you don't own the building, so I wouldn't put it on you guys. And as far as, you know, maintenance for your portion of the building, I mean, we'll work it out. I mean, I'll talk to Josh. You've got a maintenance guy that works part-time at the Board of Ed, or, you know, keep saying the Board of Ed. It's really the education department. You're at the education department now. You know, if you want to bring your part-time guy over there to do the same thing, we can work something out.
I think that was one of the questions we had, is what would our responsibility? Is there possible, and I'm going to take the tour later because I wanted to be here on time because I'm always late. Is there a way, and if I remember correctly, we can block it off so the Board of Ed section is separate, and can we do a security so only people we let into the building in that section? That was one of the questions that we had.
Yeah, of course. You know, we've already identified, you know, this kind of connecting hallway to, you know, that back portion is actually the, it was an addition. So you got this connecting corridor that could be segregated off from the rest of the building. You've got complete, you know, security and control over, you know, that particular wing. Whatever you want to do. It shouldn't be, there's really no practical issues with doing that. And in terms of putting your security system, you can do whatever you want in there. You can transfer the one that you have at East Street now. We can talk about what you need. But the beauty of this kind of segregated wing is that, you know, it's all for you guys. You know, it's very easy to kind of block it off from whatever's going on at the rest of the building. Or you could open it up.
I'm making the assumption our facilities person will be at the ground level as we design this.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. I didn't see. We weren't sure if since it wasn't a committee where we fit in, and that's why I'm glad you're here. Kevin is our leader in that area, and this committee is overseeing that.
Of course, you're going to tell me what you want. Do whatever you want. You want your own contractors to go in there and do the work? Do it. You want to use our low bid contractors that we've got on hand already? That's fine. You want to use your guys for painting? We're going to work out all these details. I mean, you know, it's a collaboration. There's nothing being dictated to anybody. Working with all my department heads, including your superintendent. So that's part of the collaboration.
Dave, did you want to speak? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's hard to hear on
I know how you feel now.
Yes.
I know how you feel now. Yeah, Mike, I certainly think that we do I agree with Bill. We have a wonderful community asset there that can be developed for a variety of things. We have a commercial kitchen there. You have a gymnasium, all these things. I don't need to list parking, which I think is very critical. But we haven't really spoken about East Street building and the amount of money and maintenance costs that we have for that building, which have been sat on this board for over 10 years, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars, putting new windows in, doing this, doing that, and we're still not in compliance with the Office of Civil Rights. And even on our list today, look at what we have here. You know, it's new doors, okay, and hardware and a number of doors that we had to redo on new buildings already. There is no elevator there. We know that. And it's just simply not accessible.
What's the story of the cupola? Is that leaking, or is there an issue?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think if we look carefully at the foundation and a lot of things, we might find that there's a lot of money that we need to invest to keep that building going as well.
Sure.
However, I do share one concern with East Street, and I believe I've shared it with you many, many years ago, and that's the stained glass.
Of course.
And the New Deal murals.
I'm sorry if I didn't, I don't
No,
spoke
you
about this
mentioned
so
it in
much,
your opening.
So in an RFP, one of the conditions for the request for proposal would be that the stained glass would be preserved, and however it be removed, that would be offered to the town for, the first right at no cost. Same thing with the WPA murals or any other kind of artwork that is culturally significant. So that's absolutely a consideration as I go out to request these proposals from any kind of developers or development property.
So I guess what I'm saying is perhaps we should compare that with the upkeep costs of East Street so that we really do have a true picture of what's going on.
Is there somewhere on there that this subcommittee could be linked up with the people that you're dealing with on what you want, what is being proposed for that piece, so that we are in conjunction with it and showing our needs?
Well, let me put it this way. You're telling me what you need for that piece. I'm not telling you guys.
All right,
So,
how do we
when I
convey
say I'm
that?
working with Josh, I don't mean that we're exchanging all kinds of information. I've said to him, please take a look at this piece, this part, talk to your board, and then tell me what it is that you need logistically, financially, whatever it is. You tell me. You're in charge of this boat, your portion over there. So I'm not looking to dictate to you. If you tell me you need X amount of classrooms, you need to do X amount of work, that's fine. I think this is, like I said, it's a collaboration. It's not a dictation.
We have not realized that officially. So if you're saying that we designed it and presented it to the town for the funds, because we don't have it built in our budget, then that's what you're saying to me?
Yeah, we'll figure out a budget, Tell me what, the
No, but
budget is
I
going to
think
be for what
design.
you need to do.
Because I know Roberta's
And we're gonna work
in the
together.
audience, who's our AT person, and
Sure.
Kevin have been over there to start looking at how we convert it into a building use that we have now. And I'm sorry, Angie, I didn't see your hand up. Go
Well, we
ahead.
just keep talking about the budget. Who's paying for it? Who's paying for the move? Who's paying for these upgrades? Who's paying for this? Where's this money coming from? Our
The town, like
budget
I
is
said,
done.
I'm not asking you to pull out of your budget, like I said before. There's a number of different options, depending on the budget. Now, if you come to me with like $1 million budget, I'm gonna have some issues with that, because I don't think that it's gonna cost that much to kind of get this, ready for you guys. You come with me reasonably, we'll find the money to finance it. But like I said, we've got an appraisal on the East Street building and between $1 and $2 million. We could loan ourselves money from that sale. We could look at other funds, and this might go into next year's budget. At which point, I'd rather have the numbers set in concrete so that I can incorporate it into a budget, rather than just kind of guessing at that point. There's other places. I mean, if it's big enough, I'd consider going out, with a van or something. So, but for me, it really depends on what the budget is. If it's between $100,000 and $250,000, I think as a town I could find the money to finance that. If it starts getting beyond it, we're going to have a different kind of discussion. But it all depends. We don't know right now.
Follow up?
So you're saying $150,000 to $200,000, and we just did a construction project in our house, and I know what $150,000 bought is. So when I see that school, I can tell you right now, there's no way $150,000 is going to do it. In my opinion, that's my vision.
Let me ask you something.
Let me ask you. No, I want to ask you your vision.
Yeah.
What's your vision for going in that school? I mean, are you thinking we can just move right in? Are you? What are you? You say you've been in there. Well, I mean, what do you think we need to do in that building, in your opinion? I mean,
We got to clean it up. We got to upgrade some electrical. We've already budgeted to fix the leaks in the roof, so that is budgeted. We've already budgeted to fix the water heater or whatever, the boiler. And we've got to address any kind of, electrical, plumbing is in good shape. There'll be some partitioning of the classrooms, which I don't expect to be too complicated. I don't know. Beyond that, that's what we've identified so far as some of the major hurdles, not obstacles, but things that can be overcome.
are you going to repave the parking lot?
I don't know right now. Maybe not the first year. Does it need to be repaved?
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually. Everything needs to be done eventually. My thing is to do it in stages. I'm also looking to kind of rent out, some of those, nonprofits are interested in renting out space. There's a chance that this thing could be almost, generate some real revenue to put back into the building to kind of address some of those capital needs.
like the parking lot, landscaping, security, whatever have you, maintenance. So
We're gonna need to do this, and I'll let you people comment on my statement. One of the things we talked about, either a consultant or a project manager, we do not have anyone on staff to come to you with a plan. Kevin runs the whole facility, so we can't pull him away from that. We have no one else to do that. So we may have to look at a project manager, because if you're saying we come to you or to the town with a proposal what to do, we don't have anyone on staff to do that. So that's a step that we're going to have to take.
what did you guys do when you went into the East Street building? Did you have a project manager then?
I was alive then.
Yeah.
Unknowns to other people around here who were old enough to remember that.
But it was a school. It
It
had
was-
been an existing
we-
school when they moved, right?
It was, we went from the
I think
post
most-
office, the post office was given to the town by the federal government for 30 years for educational purposes, as you
Yeah.
know. We moved them, once they left, I don't know if most people realize, the children at East Street moved to Northville. That school was, East Street was replaced by Northville. We moved the open space superintendent's office into an actual office at that time. I can't tell you what we put into it. I do know that we moved them there, and I can't give you any, the person I need to ask is my buddy out there, because she is more.
It's okay. Let me say this though. I mean, you can get a general sense of what you want to do with the space, and
Well, I'm saying is
and
I-
figure out. And let me say this though. You managed to, about a year and a half ago or two, whatever it was, you moved, an entire population of teachers, logistics, equipment, everything else out of Pettibone, and you spread it out amongst, 2 other schools. So, I mean, I'm saying if you could do that, we could kind of come up with a plan that addresses what your needs are for this kind of wing. And if it looks like it's too, out of control, we could talk about whether a project manager
See,
is
the
needed.
difference here, sir, is that when we moved third grade out of Pettibone, we had an existing classroom that was set up for them.
Mhm.
There was no question. It was a classroom and had all outfit to fit any class.
Sure.
As you know, I was a proponent of not closing Pettibone. But the people who did the study came up, and I could not argue, there was a place in the district for these students to move into a
Sure.
we're moving an office into something that is not set up, so it's different.
Sure.
And that's why I can't turn around to Kevin and say, I need you to come up with a plan and still run facilities.
Yeah.
That's my bind.
Okay. Well, I can tell you what we're planning on doing with regard to our other offices, with, dividers and breaking them up. And if it makes sense, then, we'll share it with you guys. But if you feel like you need a project manager, listen, it's not like it's not been done before. I mean, your current offices are in former classrooms as well. So you see that it's not, it's not insurmountable.
It didn't just
But if
happen.
you tell me, no, I know, exactly. So if you tell me whatever you need a project manager to coordinate, setting up the logistics,
So
whatever you got to
to
do.
tell you, that's what we did. Maybe you probably are aware of it. When the school was voted to be closed by this board, we hired a project manager to help us figure out how the most efficient way of doing it.
Fair enough.
And it wasn't put on Kevin's shoulders.
Sure.
We had a separate group, and they went around, I think, each school for parent input, because the parents were concerned about what was happening.
Sure.
That was something we hired beyond, and we put that in our budget.
Okay.
To do that, we have not done that in this budget, so that's why when you say financially help, that's what I'm asking. Could we hire somebody similar as a project manager whose responsibility was to figure out what to do?
That's fair enough. I
Okay.
can talk to Josh about logistics of it and kind of set up a framework of what you're exactly looking for in the kind of building and facility.
I'm sorry, David,
Okay.
did you have your hand up a long time? I'm sorry.
No, I did not. I just said off.
Yeah, like I said, there's all details we work out.
I guess, again, the discussion this evening on this proposal has been about money. We haven't talked about the benefits that this JPS can offer us, and I think that's a very critical part of this conversation, an extremely critical part of this conversation, because the mayor said, it's not just about the Board of Education moving there, but other agencies as well moving there. And are we looking at it through our eyes only, or are we truly looking at it for the benefit of students, kids, and for that matter, the community? And that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, you know,
I'm sorry, David, I don't understand that, because our job is to look in through the eyes of the school. That's what we were voted in for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
And I'm not saying I'm against the youth agency and Park and Rec.
well, I
but
think
we
that
need
those
to-
are educational components too that complement the educational system. So we may disagree on that,
Okay,
but
go on the record, we disagree.
but that's one thing that concerns me about these types of discussions, is that it boils down to the money thing, which obviously if we don't have the money, then it makes it cost prohibitive. That's one thing. If it is affordable, I think we should take a look at it.
Sure. The thing I was saying to the mayor is that, like we did before, we had a project manager.
Yeah, clerk of works, yes.
And
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Mhm.
so that we know what our options are, what kind of costs we're talking about. Right now, we, as this committee, have no idea. And, except for maybe, excuse me, Andy, I don't see anybody on this committee, except for this gentleman, has any idea of the cost of doing that.
Mhm.
And, yes.
Just kind of speaking to David's point, are you going to have community forums such as was done when Pettibone was being discussed?
What do you mean?
Are you
I
going to
don't
have town
understand.
meetings and, you know, we had meetings, we had, I don't know, probably 20
There's a
plus
little bit of a
meetings.
different dynamic. I mean, you know, when you close Pettibone, you're dealing with students and parents, and, you know, you're moving people out of the school. These are administrative offices. I mean, you know, when Parks and Rec was moved into, you know, the old post office building, they didn't have a community forum. I don't know if there was a community forum when you guys were moved into the East Street building. I respect the employees, and that's why I kind of, you know, go through Josh and make sure that everything is accommodated. But in terms of the impact, we're not impacting students or parents or teaching experience or education. You know, frankly, it's administrative.
But I respectfully disagree. I think we are impacting all of those things because somebody has to pay for it. I appreciate what you're saying, that, you know, our job as students, but ultimately, somebody has to pay for this.
Yeah.
And if we do, move everybody over there, and if we have nonprofits in there, that's great, but nonprofits are nonprofit. They don't make money, that's their whole point. They're not gonna pay a ton in rent. They want something cheap. Who's gonna pay for that? The taxpayer's gonna be stuck with
I don't
that.
understand where you're going. Hold on, back for a second. What's this about the nonprofits, that they're not going to pay for it? I mean, we've already kind of
They're
negotiated a
nonprofit,
number
they're-
of, excuse me.
So-
We're
so
going
you-
to, excuse me. We've negotiated a number of rents, somewhere in the realm about, you know, $500 for one of the empty classrooms a month. And a lot of nonprofits are very eager to actually take advantage of, because the market rent anywhere else downtown is far in excess of that. So, and there's that aspect. It doesn't really concern you guys, because, I mean, you're in this wing. But I'm not asking you to pay for it. But just so you know, I mean, so there is revenue coming in. And I know your concerns about, you know, the money, but I'm telling you that I'm not asking you to pay for it out of this budget. I'm not even asking you to pay for it out of next year's budget. I'm going to find the money on behalf of the town.
Somebody's gotta pay for it. Money doesn't just fall from the trees.
Well, what if
Somebody
we
has
sell
got
the
to
issue?
pay for it.
How do you say that?
Well, you're still not gonna get enough to long-term support on Pettibone.
I know your concern, and it's been expressed very well, and we hear the mayor's side. You know, we may have to look at, to have a subcommittee of us that is working in conjunction, so we know what's going on, to bring a design, it sounds like, to the mayor for this. So I think that's something we should consider in the future. Especially you, David, because you're chairman of the board and on the committee, Josh. I think we should open up the communication between the mayor's office and us, so we can start to figure out what the cost is on the design. So I think I can't put it on this agenda to create up a subcommittee of us. Next agenda, I'll have it on there so we can talk about how to design a subcommittee to deal with what's going on. I mean, you're asking, in essence, for us to give you, the town, a proposal, how we want to deal with this.
That's your Josh, actually.
Josh doesn't have.
Yeah, I know.
So is us.
So I say, I would go on record by saying we've had a couple of informal conversations, but this is the first formal request of the Board of Education for a proposal We had one meeting this summer with the chairman of facilities and the chairman of the operations committee to have a preliminary conversation about the space. But tonight would be the official request of the town for a proposal from the Board of Ed where we would dedicate services to actually doing that.
All right, what I'll do is, if it's okay with this committee, I'll meet with Josh, come up with some idea to present to you, so that we know what we're asking the town to do with this, okay? On Wendy, who's the operations, myself, and at that meeting, I asked for a special meeting of this to do this sooner, and then when we looked at our calendar with other things, it was almost impossible to create that special meeting. This is our first official meeting. If I have to, I will call a special meeting so that we can meet earlier, because if we're going to give a proposal, we have to know what that proposal is and what cost is with that entity, and present it to the mayor on that. Josh, is anyone have an objection if I meet with Josh to set that up and then get back to you? Anybody feel differently? Anyone here would like to be with me, with Josh? Because you might, Pat is very good at keeping us away from each other so we don't have a fight. Anybody? All right, so I'm going to propose, if you don't mind, that Josh and I will sit down. For what I gathered from this conversation with the mayor, that they're looking for us to come up with what we envision that area is going to be. All right, before we. And then the cost would be after we come up with our vision. So I'll meet with Josh and Kevin, of course, and then I'll inform you through memos what we came up with, and then have a subcommittee of this group to deal with it. Because I would have to present it to David Lawson as chair if we were looking at a project manager, because that would be the board as a whole. I will come up with a proposal for you guys, all right? Because now, the thing that I got clearly out of this meeting that I didn't have before, the vision, or what that's going to look like, comes from this board. Then we need to come up with a vision, so that, and then we can talk about costs and stuff, or what it's related to.
You've identified the exact point of the process that we're in right now, so you're going to do that with regard to your piece. I'm doing the exact same thing with regard to the youth agency, Parks and Rec, and the social services piece.
Then we're in line
So,
with
yeah, I don't have those costs either. So you guys figure out what the costs are on your end to get to the point where you want, where it meets the vision of your board, and then I'll come together with my costs, we'll put them together, and we'll figure out a plan to kind of move forward.
Okay, is anyone feeling comfortable with that, with the committee, that we start that way, and I will come up? I brought up at that meeting a consultant or a project manager, because we did the same thing with Pettibone. We did not, there we were very clear where the kids would fit. That was all set. It was just how do we get them there and the stuff. And we felt it was better to have a project manager to help Kevin come up with that. I think we bought storage facilities to put things in and slowly do that and make it as, okay. I will let you know when I'm doing it. So if you want to join the meeting, members of this committee, when I meet with Josh, if you want to come down, great. Is there anything else put on the table for the mayor? I purposely did it, and I'm glad I did because of the time. I didn't want to cut your questions or the mayor's participation in this shot if we had a regular time frame. We usually, by the calendar, we need 45 minutes, and maybe that wasn't going to work with us.
That's fine. Whatever you gotta do.
Andy, I don't want to cut you off. I'm going to get back to you.
No, if you can address it at the board and then go forward.
Okay, do you feel comfortable, gentlemen? Kevin, do you have any thoughts that you would like to present tonight on that? Then you and I and Josh will sit down. And also I want to say to the committee, I think we have to accept the fact, and some people are feeling uncomfortable with it, there is going to be communications from our superintendent and the mayor's office back and forth, and bringing it back to that.
It have to be for something.
Right, and then we brought back to us, and
I
then
would
we,
expect
okay.
I would expect that.
That's, will be the avenue for that discussion. All right, Josh, do you feel comfortable with it? Not the whole board, and then we'll pass it on to the whole board when we have something concrete.
I think along the way, we need to share kind of our expectations, our plans, and even the rough numbers before we move those things forward. I think this committee
Absolutely,
and the board
absolutely.
we're gonna miss the fall thing because we move slower than everybody else.
Fall is whatever. I mean, there's no set deadline here. It's fall, spring. You know, let's keep making progress. Let's get some schematics together. Get me a budget. We'll find out, you know, what kind of costs are involved in it. Listen, it's a process. That's all I said. That's all I've been saying. Nobody's being evicted from anything. I wouldn't ask you to do that. You know, at some point, I'll ask you to put on the your agenda for the entire board to, you know, transfer ownership to the building. But like I said, the RFP process is going to work its way into process as well. So it's not going to happen next week or next month or the month after that.
In saying that, Mayor, I'm going to suggest this committee just leave it for discussion instead of possible action. Possible action, usually we move it to the board.
I don't think we're at the point for action. You just got to get information right now.
All right, so that's how it's
I would
moving.
think that, I have to look at that briefing on the committee report.
I'll do,
A brief
I was
briefing.
trying to remember the term. A week in review report, kind of with Josh says, I will send one out to all board members to know
Okay.
where we're at.
All right.
But it'll come back to this committee because we need to bring it from here to the board and we're not ready to do that. Is that, everyone feel that way? Angie, do you feel comfortable with that?
Fine.
So on the 13th, this will not be on the board thing. Are there anybody else? I have the list in front of us. I compiled this with things that I heard at Scuttlebutt from the board members, and anybody see something on my list that we didn't address, because the mayor is willing to address them. Is there something that I missed? Well, we thank you for coming.
Anytime, like I said, I'm happy to come anytime to give an update. As long as I've got information that's you know, to update, I'm happy to do it. And shoot me a question, anything. Shoot me an email if you have a question. Don't rely on scuttlebutt or rumors. And you're better than that. You got a direct line to the mayor, no matter who you are. So please use it, and you know, I think the process will go a lot smoother if we all do. So thank you. And good luck.
Everyone,
I'm going to leave you guys to it if you have other stuff on your agenda.
yeah, we need to pass things to the board.